There's one other piece I'd like to use the Bezier curve for, and that's a little light fixture that's maybe going to go over the doors here on our buildings. So let's work on that. I'm going to come over here to the next empty layer, and I'll come over to the Create tab, and let's create a Bezier curve. Now for this one, I think I'm going to want two bends in the object, so I think what I will do first of all is set up these two curves to take care of that beginning bend. So I'll move this kind of in line with the rest of the curve here. And for this one, I'll just bring it up a bit, move it out, and bend it a bit like this. And then if I select this point, I can then extrude this out. I'll press the E key to extrude and then click, and I'm just going to drag out with my move manipulator the next piece of the curve. So I'll bring this one down, about like this, I think. Now I just need to get these arranged the way I need them. I'll take this one and kind of bend it a bit. Maybe I'll begin using my rotate tool here, something like this. And I'm just trying to get a bend coming out of the building here, and then another bend here at the end. So let me turn this. There we go, something more like this. So if I go back to object mode, we can see I've got this curve with one bend here and another here. So this part I'm thinking will go onto the building, and it will kind of bend up and then point down to the ground. I might move this one up just a little bit more, something like that. So now in object mode, I can come back over here to this curves panel, change the fill from half to full, increase the depth, increase the resolution, and then if I press the Z key, I can see that this is really the geometry that's going to happen once I convert it to a polygon. Now I may not need that many edges in this object, so I could also come through and dissolve a few of these edges after I'm done converting it. So let's go ahead and do that. I'll press the Z key to go back to shaded view, and I'll go to Object, come up here to Convert, and convert to a mesh. So now we have a polygon object again, and if I hit the Tab key, you can see that here's our polygons. I'll switch with Control Tab to Edge mode, and maybe I don't need this many edges in here, so I'll select a couple of these. And let's try and dissolve these. So I'll press X and choose Dissolve Edges. It looks like I might be able to do one right here. So that just allows me to reduce the polygon count after I've converted the object to a polygon mesh. So now I think what I need to do is create the housing for the lamp as well as the base of the object that will fit against the building. To create this piece here, I'm just going to select this edge, and I'd like to flatten it or make it more horizontal. So I'll go to my scale manipulator and just scale in the Z-axis to flatten that down a bit. And from here I'll just press E and click, and then I'm going to go to my move manipulator, pull it down some, and then hit the S key to scale out just a bit, and do the same thing again. E for extrude, pull down, S for scale. And if we're going to look up into this, we're going to need polygons inside here. So let's create something that will allow us to look up into this without seeing through the back sides of the polygons. I'll just hit E and then scale in a bit and extrude again, and this time I'll just pull straight up and I'll scale in until it's on the inside of the object here. And I'll extrude one more time, and then I'll press Alt-M and merge at center. And there we go. Now if we would like, we could put a little sphere or something inside there that would act as a light bulb. Let's go ahead and do that. I'll tab back into object mode and create a UV sphere. But we don't need this sphere to be quite so polygon heavy, so I'm going to come over here and let's take this down to 12 and 8. Let's try this. Maybe even less than that. Let's try 8 and 8. So I'll put this in here. Needs to be pretty small. And I don't need the top part of this, do I? I don't need the polygons on the top since we aren't going to see them. So to isolate this object so I can see on the top, I can press Shift H. And now I can press the period key on the numpad to zoom in. And I'll tab into edit mode and go to face mode. I'll hit A to deselect, and I'll press that C key again for circle select. And I'll just select these faces up on top, press the X key, and delete faces. All right. Now to bring everything back, I'll press Alt-H, and now we can place our bulb in the light here. I think I'm going to go to the top view with the 7 key, press the 5 key for orthographic, and press the Z key for wireframe. And now I can move this around until it's right in the center here. There we go. I'll tumble back around, hit the Z key again, and hit the 5 key to go back to perspective mode. And now one last thing is we probably need to go ahead and smooth this sphere the way we've got everything else smoothed. So I'm going to go over to the Tools panel and click on Smooth. So I better label this light bulb. And now this piece over here is going to need to go up against the building. So let's take a look at this. I'll switch to Edge mode again, and I'll press Alt and click to select this entire edge loop. And I'll scale this in the X to make sure it's flat. And now, in the same way we've done with the other pipe pieces, I'll just press E and click, and then I'll press the S key to scale out. And then E, and I'll move this back again, like this. And I should also, over here in the outliner, change the name to lamp. Now the last thing I should do before we move on is make sure the pivot points for each of these objects are in the most convenient place, because we want to be able to snap these objects to each other based on their pivot points. So for this piece, I think what I'd like is I'd like the pivot point for this to be right back here. So what let's do is let's just select this loop of faces. I'm going to press Alt and click on an edge between two faces, and that will select an entire loop of faces. I'll then press Shift S and move the cursor to selected. And that puts it right in the center there. Now I can come over here in object mode and go to Set Origin and Origin to 3D Cursor. And that moves that there. Now let's take a look at this one here. I would like for the 3D cursor to be at the base of the object here. So what I'll do is select the object, go into edit mode, and I'll press Control Tab and the 2 key to get into edge mode. And I think I can select this edge right here and press Shift S and cursor to selected. Now I can tab back into object mode and set the origin to the 3D cursor. Now what I can do is press Shift S, put the cursor to the center, and with this object in object mode, I can press Shift S and move the selection to the cursor. And there it is. Now let's take a look at this. For this one, I think it needs to be the same as the light fixture in that we need that pivot point right in here. So I will select these faces, Alt, select an edge between the two faces, Shift S, cursor to selected. And then I'll select origin to 3D cursor. There we go. For this piece, let's put the pivot point over here. Same kind of thing. Cursor to selected, and then origin to 3D cursor. I think we're ready to move on to the next stage of the project, and let's begin working on the sidewalks and the courtyard of the environment.